Hi, this is Carl Bildt, and the question for the week is what, from the European point of view, did the meetings in Alaska and Washington achieve? Well, starting with Alaska, that was, from the European point of view, pretty disastrous, because the entire sort of force of diplomacy that Europeans have been trying to also impose or inspire Trump into was to force a ceasefire. Increase pressure gradually on Putin so that he had to agree to slow down and then end the kinetic part of the war and then make the transition to a political path. And the reason for the Alaska meeting was, of course, that Trump had set a number of deadlines and said, if Putin is not going to do this before day X or day Y, I'm going to be very harsh with him and take measures. And then he sent Witkoff off to Moscow, and Moscow comes back and said, let's have a meeting in Alaska. And in Alaska, everything collapsed. Because then, what emerged out of Alaska was Trump agreeing with Putin. No need for a ceasefire whatsoever. We go for a big deal. Well, a big deal is not going to happen within the foreseeable future. It's simply a pipe dream. So that meant that the prospects of ending the war, of getting a ceasefire, disappeared. Now, there was dismay, despair, desperation in Europe. And the fear was, of course, that when Zelensky was then going to turn up at the White House on Monday, he was going to force it into different sort of concessions that Trump perhaps felt that he had to give to Putin. That's the unheard of rush of seven senior European leaders to the White House. That prevented the worst from happening. Zelensky appeared and behaved, and Trump, as a matter of fact, behaved as well. And there was no undue pressure on Zelensky. So far, so good. Both Merz and Macron said, well, a ceasefire is actually what we need. But Trump was fairly dismissive of this again. And then there was a lengthy discussion on security guarantees, whatever that will mean at the end of the day remains to be seen. And then the thing that is now heading into, I guess, is Trump's idea, is to have a bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky, and eventually after that, the meeting between the three of them, Trump, Zelensky, and Putin. Whether that will happen is, I think, highly, highly uncertain. And even if it were to happen, I don't see that as sorting out everything. I mean, this war is not based on a misunderstanding. This war is based on sort of fairly fundamental clash of imperial ambitions and national sovereignty. It's not a question of sorting out at a personal meeting, and the meeting in itself is a solution. So it's fairly illusionary, fairly naive, but we see where it ends up. End of the day is an end to the war more likely now, or not, if we compare it to the situation before Alaska, before DC. Well, unfortunately, I think it looks somewhat more distant now than it could have been a week ago.